What's happened to our high street, eh? All those local shops gone, boarded up. All we have now is takeaways, barbers and charity shops. Is it all down to the internet, or is there another reason on top of that? Here we're about to find out what made our towns so barren. But one great big store sits triumphantly packed with rattling trolleys and people carrying numerous bags. Let's look at the birth and the takeover of the supermarket, how it began and what it has done for our economy and our landscape. We all know today of what we call the big four supermarkets in Britain: Tesco's, Sainsbury's, Asda and Morrison's, which have been in competition for the biggest share of the wealth for years. We now see more discount stores such as Lidl and Aldi, which are creeping up the scale and being more and more popular. Most of the big four have either swallowed up or washed out many old favourites such as Quicksave, Presto, Fine Fare, Hillard's, International, Safeway and Gateways. That's just to mention a few. The list is endless, and people all over the country can name many national and local ones. But when did this self-service and the big high street change begin? Let's look now at how the supermarket has took over our local friendly shopping habits, as most of us do recall, and how it's changed the look of the shopkeeper Britain forever. Before supermarkets, our high street had independent shops. We had butchers, bakers, we had tailors, flower shops, toy shops, wool shops and greengrocers, and convenience shops, where staff or owners were serving you by giving your items from behind the counter and bagging them and wrapping them for you while you stood there, just making simple chit-chat as you got that personal and friendly service. Many independent shops still exist today, but you'll be hard-pressed to find a traditional shop that didn't invite you to grab a basket and serve yourself, picking up your own goods, walking around the store, handing them to the staff and letting them add it all up while you struggle to get it in the bags before you got the glares and stares for you to hurry up and pay the bill. It's all a bit of a rush. The very first self-service store began as an experiment in 1932 by a fella called David Gree in Hornsey, and it was a success. But a few months later he closed as his sales did not really increase and he got bored. Less customer interaction. He'd been to the USA and saw the idea may work for him, but I guess he just got lonely. The first group to start a supermarket of this type was the Cooperative back in 1948 in London. And although some chains have been around for many years, such as Marks and Spencer's and Tesco's, they also tried their ideas of self-service in the same year. This was followed by Sainsbury's, but Asda, they were a bit late to the party. It wasn't until 1963 before it opened its first self-service supermarket. The growth was gradual. By the late 1950s, 10% of retail was supermarket-based, which by the mid-1960s had jumped to 25%. Within a few years, Britain was dominated by the supermarket, with 41% of the retail market being large self-service stores. Smaller businesses had to adapt to keep their share of the market, but they had their advantages thanks to the strict trading laws at the time. Set out by the 1950 Trading Act, there was no Sunday trading allowed, with the exception of essential perishables which were allowed in small independent shops. This allowed them to open as long as they didn't sell certain items. But the supermarket, being self-service, would have to close. You couldn't walk around a supermarket, pick up items, and then they'd have to ask you to put them back on the shelves. So it was easier for them to stay shut. There was also strict opening hour laws, which restricted opening hours for the big chains. With a tweak of the law, small independent shops were allowed to open for longer, for paper rounds, and they were allowed to sell off-sale alcohol products, with the rules of the licensing laws thus being allowed to keep late pub hours. Despite this, the supermarket grew and grew, making more competition for your local grocer. particularly when supermarkets were allowed to start selling alcohol in the early 1960s. Only one thing stood in the way of supermarkets taking over and damaging the local independent retail for good. That was the Resale Price Maintenance Ruling, the RMP. The RMP was a law that prevented retail outlets from changing prices that were set by the manufacturer. No retailer could resell at their own price or discount, thus making every seller of goods sell at the same price in uniform throughout Britain. However, a crippling blow to the independent trader was about to be dealt. Up until this time, chain stores offered coupons for their next visit to get around the price lock. Often cut out of magazines and newspapers, coupons would offer a few pennies off a certain product, such as tea, butter or flour. However, the crafty supermarkets would accept the coupon for any items a customer bought as long as they sold the item that was listed on the vouchers. So, if they sold PG Tips and as long as they sold it, you would use your coupon to get a few pence off any item you bought. Very crafty. Here comes the big blow. In 1964, the government abolished the RPM and made the ruling in which retailers could choose their own prices for goods, therefore could lower prices to the customer. Sounds great, but it had a massive downfall on the local shop. Supermarkets could buy massive bulk and turn over millions of stock items compared to the local shop, which had limited budgets and storage space and by now limited customer footfall to get rid of their stocks. The supermarket was beginning to own retail market and start the game of politics in the UK. Retail price index now being set according to the supermarket prices as they became a major part of pricing, thus influencing inflation. Local shops had only one advantage of Sunday opening hours, plus the convenience of a short walk to the shop and that familiar style social interaction. To compete, small shops had to move to self-service and installed freezers as frozen food began to take off in the late 1960s. More supermarkets emerged. Netto, Low Cost, Scoop and Save, B-Jam, the frozen food store, later to become Iceland. But over time they were zapped up by the large four. Marks and Spencers and Waitrose increased their top-end food chains in affluent areas. The first out-of-town supermarket had sprung up, GEM, an American company in 1964 based in Nottinghamshire, offering massive parking spaces before the town's streets became pedestrianised. GEM has been replaced by Asda today, which occupies their site presently. Other out-of-town centres followed suit, with Sainsbury's opening their Saver Centres, offering more goods such as electronic goods, gardening equipment, magazines and toys. The High Street was still thriving in the 1970s and 80s, but had already started to change. More cafés, international food stores offering foreign produce to local ethnic groups, such as settlers and migrants, in order to survive. More gambling arcades, service shops such as dry cleaners were prominent during these decades. I can remember walking through the town on a Sunday as a child in the 1970s and early 80s, never hearing any traffic, seeing a few people around when the shops were shut and expecting a bus once an hour. There was little movement on the day when most of the country just rested or went on picnics or occasional walks. What happened next would change the dreamy quiet Sunday beyond recognition. Here's a little hint. Do you remember the beginning of Tesco Express, Sainsbury's Local, Little Waitrose, Asda Express? They all crept in over time, but here is the reason why they sprang up everywhere across the country. It was the Sunday Trading Act of 1996 that was the biggest hit on local shops that would stuff their businesses up for good. Tony Blair's new Labour government put the nails in the local store's financial coffin. Shops were allowed to open on a Sunday, which included all retailers. Albeit small shops had no restrictions on the hours they traded, Larger retailers would have to close their doors after 6 continuous hours. Large stores were those who exceeded 280 square metres in floor space. Now we get it. That's exactly why the big chains open their smaller convenience shops, in order to get around the law and still grab their share of the market. People went out shopping in their drones to take advantage of the Sunday trading chance. It was a more convenient way for those who worked odd hours or just wanted to relieve the boredom of Sundays. 3 years later, Tesco's in 1997 opened their first 24-hour supermarket in Norfolk, which was the first outside of the Christmas period. And that was soon followed by others. By now we could buy anything from these stores, including taking advantage of their on-site coffee shops, filling your car with as many goods as well as your petrol or diesel tank. The whole high street had moved into the supermarket, changing the face of the country, with boarded up shops and more takeaways and more barbers and many more service shops. Since the pandemic of 2020, 24-hour shopping has declined and moved over to online shopping. You can even get a bank account, credit card or loan with a supermarket today. Is there no end to this domination? The club card, the reward card, nectar card, loyalty cards, they all began to attract more customers, or to get your data so they can offer you discounts on the goods that you already buy, only inviting you to buy bigger packs to make you spend more. At the time, everyone could take advantage of the discounts, whether you had a loyalty card or not. But that would change, and some people would miss out on this advantage. For example, a customer under 18 cannot get a loyalty card, therefore would miss out on savings. Some would call that discrimination. As many cards need address details in their application, many homeless folks also miss out, albeit you can apply online with fewer details. But I don't know many homeless people that have got a computer. It's not impossible, but it's quite difficult to obtain one in these circumstances. And what about our foreign tourists? Do they not miss out too? I know I'm probably wrong and I'm ranting on, but it seems that the card is to get more loyal customers through their doors with the impression that they are special. I have been to places like Aldi, Farm Foods and Herons and saved more money without them having to provide a rewards card. Try it. It can really work. The supermarkets have gone from strength to strength, not only setting prices to the customers, but also dictating prices to their customers such as farmers and manufacturers and wholesalers. The buy one get one free costs them nothing. They just make the wholesaler take the brunt. They just pay less for the stock. Having loss leaders to get you through the door, which is only a loss to their wholesalers. Milk has always been an example of a loss leader, which means they are happy to make a loss on a product in view of you spending more money on other items. Now they seemingly are putting back by asking the customer to buy special cartons, advertising more income to farmers, as long as you foot the extra cost. Their online business has boomed, taking more of the market, and their delivery service, which they will always deliver with a fee, only charging more for the most convenient delivery times. Self-service tills. Most of us hate them. Without any interaction from staff, all cutting down on staffing costs, thus increasing profits, while the customer does the work for them. Apart from actually stocking the shelves, we walk in, we take our items, we check them out, we bag them and we pay for them, and we're not even on the payroll. A long distance from the old days of the corner shop. It's good to know though that supermarkets are doing their bits for charity. Here's an example. Asking the customer to donate an item or two by popping them into the large basket on the way out of the store for the food banks. Commendable. But isn't it the customer who is giving and giving glory to the supermarkets? I'm sure they do more. Will we ever ditch the supermarket and its hold on us today? It would be hard. Prices are the capture, with local traders not being able to compete. And with everything being under one roof, from the newspaper to the microwave oven, it's hard not to get everything at the same time and not have to go from shop to shop. I think they have got us. I do, however, look for more sustainable stores and those who look after the farmers and use fair trade. The problem is that most of us cannot afford to be loyal to such places such as Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's or even Whole Foods due to the costs of their quality products in the era of high inflation and the cost of living troubles. It's a real shame, it has to be said. I love Marks and Spencer's and how fair they are. I sincerely hope that this has been an insight of how shopping habits have changed. It's just a part of our social history and how things have changed over the years. I wonder how many supermarkets you can remember from the past. Here's a few pictures just to see how many you can spot. Thank you so much for watching, and please forgive any mistakes that I do, and look out for more videos on social history. Once again, thank you.